says 31.
31.
So in my sort of matrix order, I have 31, figuring that's probably what you want.
Yes.
But so we'll just have to make sure.
Because it was 30 point something, so I rounded to
31, and that's fine. Okay, so
Thank you. I didn't catch it.
Yep.
Today is December 11th, 2025. This is the meeting of the City of Worcester Trust Funds Commission. I'm just going to go around the table here. If everyone can introduce themselves. My name is Paul Foley. I'm the chair.
Excuse me, is your mic on?
Testing.
How's that?
Oh, that's a voice.
You got yours on? Green lights everywhere? Okay, sorry. We'll start again from the top. Today is December 11, 2025. This is the City of Worcester Trust Funds Commission meeting. I'm going to go around the table. My name is Paul Foley. I'm the chair. Working to my left.
Mallory Shelley, Commissioner.
Francisco Hernandez, Treasurer and Collector.
Ryan Gemros, Bartholomew and Company.
Alex Bartholomew from Bartholomew and Company.
Tim McGurthy, Chief Financial Officer for the city.
Shepard Allen, Commissioner.
And welcome to our newest commissioner, Shepard Allen. We want to thank you on behalf of the city and on behalf of the commission for stepping up.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Happy to be here.
We got a few things on the agenda, so I'm going to go ahead right into it. Yesterday, I got an email with a summary of the meeting minutes from the last meeting. I trust that my two commissioners have had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes from the meeting dated November 13, 2025.
Yes, no concerns or questions.
Yes.
All right. That being said, I'm going to move to accept the second.
I can second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those meeting minutes are approved. Our third item on the agenda is a presentation and discussion of the status of the trust funds from our representatives from Bartholomew and Company. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. And if you all could just, first off, just say what obviously period of time we're looking at and then take things from there.
Yes, sir. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. What we have prepared for you today, which we send out on a quarterly basis to you via email, is a quarterly review for the city's trust fund portfolio. And we have included in this slide deck, information certainly about the company, as always, but some information on economics, markets, and investment performance inside the portfolio.
Do I get one of those?
You do get one of those.
Maybe just a brief intro for Shepard, the new, if I could. Shepard, we work with about 300 and over 350 municipal entities, represents about 80% of the cities and towns inside of Massachusetts. So we specialize in municipal work or institutional work, including nonprofits and whatnot. We've been working with the city of Worcester for quite some time. And what else do I want to say? We work as a team approach. Next time you'll probably see Kathleen Glowacki and myself here presented, and depending on the schedules, but we sometimes rotate the team You've been seeing Alex and I for the last several meetings, just because we've had some business that we wanted to keep steady, and we didn't want to have to bring somebody new into it, but from time to time, we'll rotate that. Okay?
Thank you. So, to be sensitive of your time, but, please stop and ask any questions along the way. Just getting into kind of a recap of calendar year 2025 as we are here in December. I'm going to look at the economics and markets section in the binder that we've prepared for you. And we have the high-level economic hot topics, right? Inflation, labor market, earnings, GDP. So inflation over the year started to really come down in the first quarter of 2025, and then we've seen that really accelerate from the second quarter onward, really in reaction to tariff policy from the central government. So that is important because it's tied to equity performance, it's tied to consumer spending, it's tied to corporate spending, it's tied to GDP growth. So that then impacts our expectations of the labor market. I'm not going to go through every single page here and every single graph in the concept, the interest of time, but from a high level perspective, we have still a strong labor market when you look at it as a point in time. Unemployment rate is still 4.4 now where we sit here in December, and we're adding jobs. Unemployment claims are low more often than not every Thursday morning. This morning was higher than expected. Last week was significantly lower than expected. We're having a lot of issues with consistency in data, whether it's sources of data, and then the government shutdown that we experienced here in the fourth quarter is only added to that, where there's more uncertainty in when the data is going to come out and how in his press conference, the chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, acknowledged that in the market is probably overstating things, meaning the labor market's worse than it is probably overstating things, meaning the labor market's worse than the numbers are showing. So all those two components lead to that interest rate policy, right? So if we turn the page here, and I'm going to kind of keep going towards Federal Reserve expectations on page 9 on the bottom right hand of that slide, we have seen interest rates come down on the short end of the curve from the Fed in the last 12 months from their high of over 5%. Yesterday at their last meeting of the year, they cut another 25 basis points. So we have the overnight lending rate in the 3s. What we have also seen in fixed income is really strong returns. Because when you have a high starting level in yields and then rates go down, the bond prices go up in addition to that. So it's a coupon plus environment. In addition to the strong equity returns we've seen on both domestic and international equity. But going forward, of inflation reaccelerating but a weakening labor market, what does the Fed do? Aside from all the political pressure and all the positioning on who's going to be the next chair and who's going to be on the board of governors and voting for these things, if we just look at it from an economic and academic perspective, if inflation stays where it is, if it goes up, it goes down, and the labor market continues to weaken or the data reflects where we really are, they may have to step in and continue to stimulate the economy. And the concern there would be, in theory, does that reaccelerate inflation? Because if consumers start spending more, then we could end up having another inflation. From my perspective, the inflation prints, how much of those rise in inflation are tied to tariffs, and would you consider tariff to be traditional inflation? There's not a supply and demand imbalance, which is what we're worried about from a central policy perspective and controlling interest rates. If it's just tariffs and it's, they're considering it a one-time step up, I'm not saying that necessarily, then is inflation as much of a concern as the numbers are indicating? That's certainly an open-ended question. And we also have the yield curve here on this page 10. So June 30th of 25 to September 30th, it's only one quarter. If you looked at this from the beginning of the calendar year through the end of the quarter or where we are today, what you're going to see is lower yields in the short end of the curve. So 1 year, 2 year, 3 year securities and the middle of the curve in that 5, 7, and 10 year range. The longer end of the curve, 10 year, 20 year, 30 year, is relatively unchanged, if not even a little bit higher on the long end. And that's really in response to perhaps concerns around inflation. Okay? So I'm going to, and then lastly here, tab 12, page 12, U.S. versus international equity. This is going to be an important part when we look at the portfolio, and it's not for any other reason than education. But several of you at this table know with the updated IPS, we eliminated international equity exposure for the city's trust fund portfolio, wanting to be domestic only. In 2025, we've seen international equity really perform well, and for most of the year, really outperform domestic equity. The reason for that is a decline in the U.S. dollar. So as an American investor, when I invest in foreign currencies and my currency depreciates against those foreign currencies, those foreign investments do better than my domestic investments. So you can have, if you look through currency adjustments, all of the companies globally are making money, generating earnings, cash flow, all of those things at attractive valuations in some cases. But then when you add the currency adjustment on top of that, for most of the last 20 years, it's been the other way, where the dollar has continued to strengthen, and American investors have lost patience in that. We've seen that really reverse the other way this year. And we can talk, we could talk about monetary and fiscal policy that's led to that, or just reversion to the mean. But if we look forward, does that continue to happen? And, this portfolio, while it's generating returns on a relative basis to a global portfolio, are we giving something up for that currency diversification?
Yeah.
Okay. So, does anyone have any questions before I get into the portfolio?
No.
No. Okay. So at the end of September 2025, the portfolio was just over $17.8 million. If I look on page 3 here, let's back up. On page 2, we can visually see on this historical asset allocation chart the actions we've taken to, make the portfolio more domestic, in domestic equity and to a smaller extent in domestic fixed income. And so that's where we sit today. Same risk profile, but just more concentrated. And on page 3, that visual representation of the growth of the portfolio net of your withdrawals over the years, as trust fund commissioners, and we work with a lot of trust fund commissions across the Commonwealth, the number one hardest thing you have is managing the withdrawals and spending rate on the most appropriate things. So we are here as a vendor to manage the portfolio and provide for investment returns for your spending, but you have the challenge of spending it. So the portfolio has not had a lot of spending, and so it's grown in a strong market environment. And you can see that visually in the graph below, with that blue line being the market and that gold brown line being your net flows. Okay. So this is where we're going to see that difference in this portfolio versus a global portfolio on pages 4 and 5. If you're familiar, long-term performance has been good on both calendar year basis and trailing returns, 3-year, 5-year since inception being May of 2017. But year-to-date's a different story. Portfolio through September is up 9.25% versus an index at this risk profile, 60/40. Somewhere between 13 and 13.5. And for your help, the reason why we include that value-only equity index in there is because we're really prioritizing dividend payers on the equity side. So we have that value index to be more accurate, although we do have some growth exposure. We are very much underweight the growth in this portfolio. So 2 things. That 4% underperformance year to date is largely attributed to lack of international equity because that's a global index. Now, one of the things that we can do here is we can continue to look at it that way. I think it's educational. Or we could change the index to be 100% domestic. There's no right or wrong thing in benchmarking. It's not necessarily something that you even have to decide on. We can adjust it going forward, see how we as a group like it. You can provide feedback, and we can change it at any point in time. It's not written into the IPS about what index we need to use, so that's good. It's not restrictive. And then I do like continuing to use that value index because of our overweight in that space. The other part of the underperformance in that 4% is the underweight to growth. So growth is the AI trade, it's NVIDIA, it's the companies that are really driving the entire market forward, where the other 493 positions in the S&P 500 are at times doing well, but not driving the same level of performance as the Mag 7 and the AI companies out there. Okay? Does anyone have any questions on year-to-date performance through the third quarter?
On the prior page on 2 of 9,
Yeah.
The graph shows cash equivalents. I think it makes up about, I don't know if that's 7 or 8% of our.
I think that's international bond. That's a darker green.
Okay,
You're
I was
right.
trying to figure out.
It's
Okay.
a lighter
I would-
shade of green for
Ah,
cash.
All right, that makes more sense.
It's hard to see on the line.
Yeah.
Okay. My
So I
question-
think
my
in-
question is answered then, because
Way
I
up
was
top.
wondering why we had so many cash.
No, we do not want to hold cash
Yeah.
as an asset class,
Right.
for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it
So
should be a different color.
looking, what's that?
That should be a different color.
They're a little, yeah.
It's
that's
too
all right.
close.
I'll get my eyes checked. It's okay.
It's the lighting in here, too.
My wife tells me I'm colorblind as well, so it's fine. So on pages 6 and 7, we have the investments in the portfolio. With the cutting out of the asset class, not holding any private markets, we are, it's a nice, clean, concentrated portfolio across equity and fixed income and a small allocation to alternatives. The domestic equity is tracking the Russell 3000 in exposure. And we're doing that in a way to generate income of over almost $167,000. Because if you recall, this is important from municipal accounting, that your ability to spend based on your spending practices is generating income, both interest income on fixed income and dividend income on equities, and not being able to spend realized gains. Right?
Yep.
Realized gains accumulate in non-expendable.
Okay.
Okay. So the portfolio, at the portfolio level, gross of management fees, we are estimating right now at the end of September for spending. And you have, as we talked about in the earlier graph, a lot of pent up available to be spent.
Yep.
But we're continuing to add to that number. In a portfolio that's also growing in excess of inflation. So if we can only spend net income, why not only invest in fixed income? Well, because we want a portfolio that's going to outperform some type of assumed distribution rate and inflation over time and grow purchasing power on top of that. Because
And
as,
right now, you think we're meeting those benchmarks?
absolutely, particularly because you're not spending.
Right.
So let's go back. This is a great exercise. Look at the since inception number, look at the 5-year number, some type of longer term number. Portfolio is generating a return of 6.3% since 2017. Now, obviously, it's generated returns prior to that day too. It was just with someone else. Over this exact time period, inflation's actually been a little bit higher than it was in the 10 to 20 years before that at 3.42. So let's say that net of inflation, your real return is 3%.
Yep.
Well, your distribution rate is far below 3%. Let's
Yeah.
say it's 1%.
Sure.
It's
Yep.
probably less than that.
Yep.
That means you're growing your purchasing power, net of inflation, net of distribution rate, at least 200 basis points.
Yep.
So you could say, if distribution continues to be as low as it is, we could say, we don't need to take as much risk.
Yep.
Depends on our inflation expectations. If inflation's remained 3% or lower, and your spending be 1% or lower, we could dial down the risk and target a lower return.
In terms of dialing down the risk, my recollection is that we have dialed down the risk in some of the moves that we've made. Am I thinking of that wrong?
I don't know if we haven't changed the equity allocation. We just changed the makeup of it.
Okay, I'm seeing on your graph that there's a significant dip sometime after 10/31/2023 in the domestic equities.
23. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that because we reallocated into bonds? I'm going off of memory, but I sort of have some recollection of us.
I think it's adding to alternatives.
Okay.
It's adding to alternatives, and that's really us managing the market.
Okay.
We, in 2020, we really brought our alternative exposure down to a minimum because the market dropped and we tactically reallocated, and it took us a number of years to
Yeah.
kind of rebalance out of that.
Yeah.
So as we've built our alternative bucket back up, that may be tied to that. It could also be tied to us, but I don't think that the old IPS, the new IPS, and our conversations changed the top level allocation to equity.
Yep.
Just the way, the makeup of it underlying
Sure.
between domestic, international alternatives.
Okay.
But we don't have any private markets in here. Private equity, private credit, private real estate.
Yeah.
You know, we've never spent a lot of time talking about that, but that's something we could talk about at some point in time if there's of interest to that.
With the constraints on kind of money that's accessible for distribution versus and not having unrealized gains not be part of that,
Yeah.
what would be like a sustainable distribution if, I think in our last meeting we talked about trying to get the word out, trying to have people use the funds that are available,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But also we want to make sure that programs that are established aren't like a one-time and then vanish.
Right.
So as we communicate to people that bring ideas or programs to the table, how should we be thinking about sustainable distributions from the portfolio?
First thing that I would ask you to look at is in here, we have the accounting report. So we maintain the accounting report for our clients, our investment portfolios, because the one investment portfolio, and particularly in this case, represents many underlying funds. So the proportional ownership of the portfolio to all these funds. If you look in the right-hand side, you have ending earnings. Earnings is going to be your expendable balance by fund. So you can look at the accumulated spending capacity in each of those funds over time and what we're adding to it. If you look at the earnings both at the portfolio level and the individual fund level as a percentage of the total value of the fund, you'll see that, we could talk about 1% spending, 2% spending on a yearly basis, but that doesn't take into account all of the cumulative built up capacity to spend on top of it. We can talk about things like 20 trailing quarters to smooth out spending, but inside the context of the mechanisms you have to do it in, because 20 trailing quarters generally is market value spending, where this is really book value spending. So spending practices can be built inside of, whether conservatively or moderately inside of these guidelines. But the percentage, it's on a forward-looking basis. Because on a backward-looking basis, you have significantly more ability to spend. Yeah.
In some of the funds, we utilize them on a regular basis, and so they're more spent down. And,
Right.
You can get a sense of that as you kind of paw your way through that accounting report. But we're gonna have a meeting today with frankly, some spending requests that I don't think we've ever seen before. And they're
great.
probably gonna be from funds that we haven't spent a lot of money out of. But then in May, we'll have a spending request that comes in every year from the school department. Those school department funds get regularly drawn down.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of our approach to spending, it actually just sort of depends on what fund is being drawn on and what has been built up over time. Luckily, today, we're gonna have some spending requests on some funds that we haven't spent on, I don't think, in quite a while. So that'll give us some flexibility.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ended your overall,
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy to answer any additional questions you have.
well, I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioners first. I do have a question, but Mallory, do you have any questions?
Just in terms of inflation, how do you go about measuring that for future distributions and knowing if that is a driving cause behind anything?
Sure.
Or how long, I guess, do we look at the figures to kind of estimate that projection of what we would assume or could assume? I know it's all kind of variable.
Right. Most of the modeling you do on that is based off a historical experience, right? So long-term experience is around 3%, even though the Fed's target is 2%. Especially even when you take out, the tails of, high inflation and low inflation. So think about, you know, the late 70s, early 80s, or negative inflation in even like in 2020. But when we look at the components of inflation right now is the easiest way for us to understand where we might be headed. So on page 2 there in the economics and markets, I'll give you a second to get there. And this is really small,
Yeah.
okay? But the underlying components there and where they're headed. The number one component to inflation is shelter.
Right.
And we could spend a whole hour talking about how that's calculated and how inaccurately it's calculated. But shelter inflation has been slowly coming down. And as that comes down, when it's the biggest contribution to the inflation calculation, we can reasonably expect that the number is going to continue to come down. Where we've seen sticky inflation at times can be in energy. It can go back and forth. Food, and in, you know, transportation,
Healthcare.
healthcare for sure, but then it's not a big contribution.
Okay.
I don't have that graph here.
Understood.
But so some of these, their big contribution to the overall calculation is small.
Okay.
Why is it like that? Should it be like that? One of the things I talk about is that the way that we all experience the economy, and therefore the way that we experience inflation, is all different. Every person, every business. So I could experience inflation at 6%. You could experience at 2%, depending on what services and goods we're buying.
Okay.
But you know, it doesn't have college tuition inflation in the calculation, right? But used cars and trucks, those have at times been cheaper, and now they're real accelerating. Part of that is due to tariffs, because there's more of a demand for used cars and trucks than paying a premium for a new one.
Understood.
Not to mention the fact that, you know, borrowing costs are high. So, to answer your question in a very long, complicated way, that when we look at the underlying components, can help us project where we think it's going,
Okay.
and where the potential risks are.
Okay.
But from a modeling perspective of risk profile of the account, spending practices, we're going to look at historical norms and smooth that expectation out. We're not going to make that based off of what we think is going to happen just in 2026.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you
That was
got
all.
Shepard, do you have any questions?
No, I had my question answered earlier about the distribution, so I think we're good.
Okay, and this is a question obviously for Bartholomew, but also for the table. We had talked specific as to any particular fund, that there was a different spending profile for particular funds. We talked about having a different investment strategy for other funds. I'm just asking, have we actually done that exercise as yet? Okay, so that's something that we ought to.
Not
But-
yet, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's kind of what I was getting at. Not necessarily a discussion for this meeting, but to my other commissioners, we've talked about, well, we created a new spending policy this past year. The next step in that process was that we were then going to take the funds that you see, the accounting report from Bartholomew, and then essentially put those into different categories in terms of their usage on an annual basis, to then possibly create different investment strategies for more active funds versus more dormant funds. But that's probably not a conversation we're going to have right now, but I just earmarked that for my fellow commissioners. Okay, I don't have any other questions. So I think we're coming to the end of agenda item 3. I'll just ask one more time, do any of my fellow commissioners have any other questions for Bartholomew?
No, thank you.
Okay,
No, thank you.
and any other questions from either the treasurer or the CEO?
No, thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you.
All right. With that being said, I thank you both for your time and your effort. I appreciate, obviously, that we have a very robust portfolio at this point in time. We have a lot of income that's been built into the portfolio. It's our job, obviously, as commissioners to invest that wisely, but also to hopefully the next part of our agenda to spend it wisely. So appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to do just that. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us,
Thank
and
you.
happy holidays.
You as well.
Thank you. Happy
Thank
holidays. Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
That's right,
Have a
me
happy
too.
holiday.
Sure, we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Brian. Happy holidays. Thanks, Alex. See ya. See you soon. All right, I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is listed as review and vote on applications. Subsection A of that is for applications that have been submitted by the Department of Public Health. I understand we have some folks in the audience tonight. I count 6 of them. Is everybody here from the Department of Public Health? Okay, terrific. So, by my count, there are 5 spending requests that have been submitted by the Department of Public Health. And is there one particular person who's going to speak to these requests, or is it a shared, is there going to be different people speaking to each request? The latter. Oh, okay. All right. So before I get into that,
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yep.
so we have Commissioner Tamara Lundy, who is the head of the Department of Public Health, and then her team members who are all involved with the various initiatives that the various grants are related to. So I don't know if, Tamara, if you want to join us at the table, and then you can have the appropriate person come up for each individual request.
yeah, that'd be great. I have, in front of me was a stack of papers. One of them had a correction to a particular request. It looks like the number 0 had been stricken out so that the request is 3,000.
Sorry, through the chair. So the backup for the request indicated a $31,000 need.
Ah, okay.
And the cover said 30, so we're just amending it to 31,000.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So this packet of papers then is the votes that we're going to be signing if these are
Through
approved.
the chair, that's correct. So once each request is approved, if so, then the treasurer will sign to confirm the appropriateness of the request to the trust, and then the 3 of you would sign as well.
Okay, great. I'm gonna ask that we take the request as to the Clorinda Wood Fund. The amount of the request is $9,686.72 first. Are my commissioners okay with that approach?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, and then we can look at the requests. The remainder of the requests are from the George Knight Fund. We can take those in bulk after that point. Welcome to the table.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, Miss Lindy.
Hi, it's nice to see you
You
again.
too.
The riveting conversation that you were just here for essentially has to do with making sure that we have enough money to fund the requests that you present to us. Your presentation of requests, which I very much appreciate the work you've put into it, your requests essentially call on the commissioners to make sure that the request meets with the parameters of that particular trust fund. And then for us to then either approve the request as submitted, or make amendments to it, or suggest amendments to it, or to deny the request as submitted. For purposes of the viewing public, of which there may be an audience of 2, the total trust funds we have are $17 million. However, that $17 million is divided amongst, I don't know, how many total trusts do we have?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that.
I think I've
would
added them
say
up
it's
before.
got to be over 55 or 60. It's significant among more than 5 different groups. I think one of those groups is broken into 2 types, Group 5 and Group 5 various. So yes, probably over 60 funds.
So the point of that is that we don't have $17 million to spend. We have whatever amount of money is available in any given trust fund. So for example, you've requested money from the Clorinda Wood Fund. Does anybody quickly know what's available?
It's the top one.
The Clorinda Wood Fund, the amount of funds available in that for spending purposes is $153,000. And so your request obviously is well within the parameters we as commissioners have to make sure that we're aware of is future spending requests. You may very well have a very successful program with this, and you might want to come back year after year to fund the same thing. It's our job as commissioners to make sure that when you come back in 2045, there's still money available for these kinds of requests. Does that all make sense? Without further ado, with respect to the Clorinda Wood Fund, go ahead and identify yourself, and if you're going to talk to us, tell us what.
Yes. So, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I guess, right now. My name is Amelia Howe, and my title is the Chief Public Health Nurse for the City of Worcester. And for this particular proposal request, this is based off of outreach that I do. This is a proposal that reflects the city and prolong life through community-led health education and outreach. So just going through the background, by leveraging trusted partnerships and culturally and linguistically responsive programming, our initiative builds meaningful connections with underserved residents, particularly with the BIPOC individuals in public housing, while promoting health literacy and access to care. So funding from this trust would directly support the high-impact outreach events that embody the city's commitment to equity, inclusion, and public health innovation. So basically, we have a lot of outreach initiatives and events, and the goal is always to reduce chronic disease disparities. And basically, when we go out and hold these events, we need to provide screenings. We need to assess what is needed. We need to know that if I tell you you have a high blood sugar, or you've given me this test to turn in, that I also have resources, not just I can provide these screenings, but I have the resources to help you continue your care, to get more long-term care, more long-term services. So we also, with my two proposals that you'll see, it's not only just asking for money, pilot money to buy supplies and to provide screening, but also to print out materials, educate in different languages, and help people connect to services. First proposal is for kits, A1C kits, and some glucose test strips because other supplies would have been donated, and colon cancer screening kits. And these are just literally at-home kits that we would do with clients at outreach events. And along with other partners, along with other UMass providers, a tabling event that, is basically a health fair, we would be able to provide this and more. We would do blood pressure screenings. We could add any type of screening that we're able to provide. But unfortunately, these types of supplies cost money, and we want to keep it going. But the idea was to create this pilot, collect data on this for several months, up to 6 months, and see where we're at. How do we sustain this? Do we need to look for grant funding? Was this enough? Does it make sense? Are we getting results? So that's what this is about. And the cost estimates are based on vendors that the city has, that we collaborate with and that we partner with, and that we have access to.
So you had done a pilot program in June of 2025.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds to me like the pilot program that you ran in June of 2025, you feel like it was fairly successful. And
Successful in that we were also with other providers in the area. UMass was there. We had Family Health Center. Everyone was there that we always partner with at these outreach events. And they all provided their own screens, and they took back their information, collected their data. We're collecting ours. We collaborate with them. And instead of everyone doing the same thing, when we come together at these events, we all have our part in this. And then we come back, share the data, collaborate. What's needed for next time? What tweaks can we make? So it's basically, we try it, and then we learn from it, and then we see what needs to change. But people are coming to the table. They're asking, can you do my blood pressure? Can you check my A1C? Some people don't know what an A1C is. Some people do, but haven't had it checked for a year and don't realize, oh my God, it just went up 5 points, that sort of thing. And so then we can get on our phones, we can help them call their provider, their insurance. Also on our city phones, we can use language line. So we're able to speak to people in different languages. Now, on paper, we would have to print materials in different languages and then explain it that way. So,
Do you plan on running, is it the same event for June of 2026? Is that the intent? Is it,
the goal was to do it every several months in a different, like, housing authority location or identified by our mapping and EPI team. They can help us figure out, and with the state's help, we need to access data to figure out where to go to next. So that's another part of this that's being worked on behind the scenes.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I feel like the request is appropriate. I'm in favor of the program. It's the first time that we'd be funding something like this. So I guess typically when we fund things for the first time, we might have like a follow-up meeting to sort of assess how it worked for you, how the funds were deployed, and sort of do an assessment of the need. Again, with the thought that your funding request this year is looking prospectively, and over time you're going to get more data in terms of what's appropriate.
Absolutely.
And then we need to manage the spend to make sure that
Yes.
we can, if this is a successful program, it can be funded for years to come.
Oh.
So if I were to say that I'd approve this, when would be a good time for you to come back and report on how the funds were deployed?
If you could give me, it's kind of like holiday season right now, if you could give me 3 months, I could come back
Okay,
with some data.
with some data, that's great. And I'm not, there's no
Yeah.
time crunch on my part.
No,
We have 4 meetings a year typically.
Okay.
So we meet in May, we then would meet in September.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
If, for reporting purposes, September of 2026 would be a better timeline, I'm just curious if that would
Might
give
even
you
be better,
a
yes.
fuller picture.
Yeah.
It sounds like some of these programs go through the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Year round.
Yeah, sure.
Anything here that I'm asking for, year round, and, different locations, and, we kind of pivot as we learn. He's approaching us at this event, maybe there's not so much of a need, and maybe this area requires more education, and maybe we pivot to another location. So in a year's time, I will have collected quite a bit of information.
All of the programs and all of the services that you're offering, they're taking place within the city of Worcester.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything being done to ensure that the folks that are being serviced are Worcester residents, or is that not so much a part of the profile?
So far, they have been, because we've been going to housing authority buildings
Oh, great.
in the city where people live.
Yep.
So part of the goal, of course, is to go to where people are,
Yep.
and we go to where they live, mostly,
Sure.
so.
Sure. Those are my questions. I don't know if my fellow commissioners have other questions.
No, mine was just gonna be about progress reporting as well, so that was really the only question that I had.
Yeah, I think progress reporting is great.
Yes.
With some of the equipment that you're buying, is there, does data show that you're gonna go through all of that, screening material within 1 year? Or do you anticipate there being some carryover? Is there a shelf life we should be aware of or worried about?
There would be shelf life, but I anticipate going through it.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have a statement as to the purposes of the Clorinda Wood Fund? I have my book on me. If I have to drag it out, I can.
Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that the Clorinda Wood Fund is one of the Group 1 funds. It was originally for Worcester City Hospital. The CyPRAE allows the income to be used for the purpose of providing public health programs, clinics, and services.
For myself, I would say that request seems to be well within the parameters of the purposes of the fund. I would put two conditions on the granting of the funding request as requested. The first condition would be that all services are provided within the bounds of the city of Worcester, number one, and number two, that in September of 2026, that we get a report as to how the funds were deployed and a general sense as to the success of the program and steps going forward. Those would be my two conditions. I don't know if either of my commissioners have anything further on that.
No.
No, that'd be great.
Okay. I have a vote here in front of me. In signing this, I think I would have to put the two conditions on the signature. Am I thinking of that correctly? Or would it just be in the notes?
Through the chair, I would expect both conditions will be followed.
Sure.
So I think, we can record them in the minutes.
Yep.
And we can make sure we invite folks back for the September meeting. And I'm sure all services provided at this point would be in the city of Worcester. There would be no
Yeah.
Agreed.
external.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely agreed.
Okay. And I agree with that. I'm fine with those going into the meeting minutes. And then we can work on scheduling after this is done. So I'm gonna, on the basis of those two conditions, I'm gonna move to approve the funding as requested. I'm looking for a second.
A second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time.
Thank you.
We'll sign these at the end. All right. Do you have any preference as to order for the remaining funding requests?
I was, through the chair,
Yeah.
I was thinking that because we do have a second public health nursing request, maybe we just pivot to that one
Sure.
while Amelia is here.
Okay.
That should be for the comfort and care packages. Is that what this
Okay.
one-
Yeah, okay. Okay, great.
That's the one where there was an error, it said 30,000.
Yep.
I rounded it up to 31,000.
All right, so
Okay.
we're going to consider the George Knight funding request. The amount of request is $31,000, and the purpose is comfort and care package. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so, similar type of a situation. We have a nurse that goes out with the outreach team, and other partners, of course, and Worcester PD. Basically, need some emergency supplies to hand out. And again, this is something where, all these items listed here, based on, what the outreach team and the HHS housing team suggests that the people that they're trying to reach need. That's why we came up with this list. And the pricing, again, is based on access to city vendors and brands that we know that work well. We would like to provide these supplies along with a list of resources which would be discussed with each client. And the list of resources is basically, and of course in whatever languages we need to print this material in, list of resources helps identify housing services, homeless services, stabilization, detox programs, medication for substance use disorders, counseling, residential recovery homes for women affected by substance misuse, and mental health issues. So we can help people that we outreach to connect to these services. And I would like my nurse to put together these care kits, give them out. There's a lot of emergency supplies in here that is very helpful and useful, and she can show them how to use whatever it is that they don't know how to use. And winter's coming, so that's why we've included things like hat, gloves, socks, hand warmers. There's some first aid supplies because some of these people, they have wounds and there's no way to treat them. And so we also bring Narcan and fentanyl test strips and do blood pressure screenings. And she's going to collect all this data. She's going to give this stuff out, collect the data on what works, what doesn't work, what else do they need, and how can we help you connect to services. So this, again, is provide something, but also continue to now what? What's long-term for you? Not just handing something out and walking away, because we want to keep coming back over and over to help you use these supplies, take care of yourself, and then help you get the help that you need, or counseling, or whatever is required. So it's a similar situation. We're asking for money to buy supplies and to print materials in different languages.
The costs that you have, it says 300 to 400 kits. Do you know whether the pricing of $30,000 is as to 300 or 400 kits? That's
Well,
kind of a wide.
Yeah,
wide-
there's a few items on here
Yeah,
where if I go per unit to keep things even, they would go above 400. If I say, you know, I need something and to keep it even to get me to 400, it takes me to 410, then I will subtract a unit and it would be maybe 390. So that's why I say 300 to 400, because it's an average. It's close to 400 is what it is.
do you know where the distribution of these kits would occur? Would it just be like a person in a car going around to these various?
No, it's our outreach nurse going around with the quality of life team,
Yep,
Net of Compassion team, HHS team.
but it would be a mobile unit of some kind. Is that the idea?
They go out, they're out now in the field, they go to encampments, shelters,
Yeah.
all over. And she would control this, she would hand these out, and she would be a part of the team that explains everything in here. And if we need a different language, she has her work phone with Language Line, and we would have the materials, the resources printed in other languages. And everyone on the team is ready to connect any person to any of these services. Like literally, that's what the team does. They go out and they find people. And sometimes we have situations where we're managing communicable disease cases and someone doesn't show up at a hospital, and the quality of life team with these other partners can go out, and that's all a part of this. It will be managed, and again, we will collect how this is used. Is it appreciated? Is it needed? What else? Maybe swap something out for something else. But again, it's a pilot, so we have to try something in order to collect some information. But these are the items that, based on feedback, these are the basic items that would be extremely helpful for anyone who is at this moment unhoused, that we can reach.
So my concern is that this is not a sustainable spend. What I mean by that is that if we spent $30,000 every year on this program,
Right.
we'd burn through the
Right.
cash available in this fund in a fairly quick
Yes,
amount of time.
yes.
And my second concern is that it's a pilot program, meaning
Right.
something, you know, that we're going to test out, see how it works, get feedback on that, and then try to improve it over time. So my thought, speaking for myself, and
Right.
I'll turn the mic over to my other commissioners, my thought is, I appreciate the fact that we've already had a pretty cold winter so far.
Yes.
I wonder if we can't put together a package that is oriented toward the winter needs, pilot that out, see how it goes at hopefully a lower cost, and then come back. I'm just trying to figure out a way to manage cost on this for a pilot program.
Okay.
Those are my concerns, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to my fellow commissioners.
Offhand, I don't really have any comment other than to agree with what Chairman Foley has mentioned already. Yeah, I don't really have any other comment, just that I understand that it would be something that's given out, nothing we would ever recoup costs for, or have any sustainable income coming back from. So yeah, I guess I can just agree with what you might have suggested and maybe see the shortening of a program or a smaller short-term
So
program.
focus on winter package supplies, and then a shorter term so that we can collect data and report on it.
Well, before we get into a back and forth about it, let me just ask
Yeah.
my fellow Commissioner Shepherd, do you have any thoughts about it?
Now, as in preparation for the meeting and reviewing this, I think these are super valuable programs, and there's a need in the community. What I think we all are kind of voicing is we want this to be sustainable in that it's not we show up 1 year and then we're gone for 10,
Yeah.
right? So how can we continuously impact the community and a sustainable, and it comes down to, we'd love to be able to have print unlimited money, but we have to make sure that we have enough to do this from the long term. I think the pilot program for a shorter period of time, and maybe we can have questionnaires and have a better idea of, I know you guys have done some research, but what are the specific things that we would need? And maybe it is a winter and a summer type of schedule or something like that. But I think creativity and bringing costs down would really help stretch this out over time.
Okay.
So I completely agree.
Yeah, I think as commissioners, it's probably not our job to micromanage exactly what goes in these care packages. It's probably not our job to manage how you distribute them or what your target population is. I guess our job as commissioners is just to look at this program and then to fund it to a certain amount, and then look for reporting back on how the program is implemented to see how it could be sustained. So I would think that for a pilot program, trying to give you a fair shake in terms of really coming back to us with hard data about this is what worked, this is what didn't work, this is how we think we can make this work into the future, I would fund this up to $10,000 and try to get a report back possibly at the May meeting about how, I mean, if this is a question to you as well, like, if we did it that way, would that give you a sufficient amount of time to assess how the program played out and to sort of maybe think, you wouldn't have to submit a new request to us in May. I'm just saying we want to deploy it in the future.
Yes.
Like I said, we can't do $30,000 a year, so somehow
Yeah.
or another, this is going to have to get adjusted. But would that give you a sufficient amount of funds to sort of play this out?
It would definitely give me funds I would definitely be able to collect all the information by May for whatever the 10,000 purchases.
Okay,
So that's not an issue at all,
okay.
because we're out there 2-3 times a week. So, and I don't know the number of people they run into, but we would definitely use this up and have a report by May.
Okay, I don't want to put you under pressure. Like I said, we
Yeah,
meet
no,
4 times a year, so
that
if you
won't
need
be
till
an issue.
September,
No.
that's fine too. Just in terms of process here, can somebody also just read in what the purposes of the George Knight Fund are? I think it's similar to what we just heard.
Yeah, I can go ahead. The Department of Public Health and Code Enforcement of the City of Worcester or its successor shall apply the income for hiring, training, and employing personnel for purposes of providing public health services, clinics, and programs in the City of Worcester, including but not limited to healthcare screening, medical services, counseling services, home visits, immunization clinics, flu and inoculation clinics, healthcare, nutrition, education, and information programs. The income may also be used to purchase, repair, and maintain equipment and supplies associated with the providing of public health services, clinics, and programs in the City of Worcester for public health benefit.
Okay. I'm satisfied that the nature of the request and how it's going to be deployed is within the parameters of the George Knight Fund. Do my commissioners agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I'm going to move to fund this request in the amount of $10,000. I think that the request was for
31, yes.
$31,000. I'm going to condition it again on that the items in these comfort and care packages be deployed within the parameters of the City of Worcester, number one, and number two, that a report be made back to the commission in person. I would prefer that we could be able to ask questions. I don't mean to tie you up. I know you have lots of things to do.
Yeah, no.
But I'd want to report back in our May meeting or springtime meeting, whenever that occurs. Those are the two conditions that I would place on this. Do my fellow commissioners have any other conditions?
No.
No.
All right, I'm going to move then to fund the request at $10,000 on those conditions. Do I have a second?
I could second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye,
Aye.
and that's unanimous. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Thank
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. But I hope these conversations you appreciate. Yeah, the back and forth. Yep. Well, hopefully we gave you a few stars today. Of course.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Commissioners. Thank you.
Can you identify yourself?
My name is Brenda Wright. I work as a principal clerk at the Division of Public Health, and I am a member of the Wellness Committee.
Okay. Ms. Wright, how do I spell your last name?
WRIGHT.
Which of the requests are we going to hear from now? Do you know?
So that should be the request for the wellness retreat. It should be the staff wellness
Staff Wellness
retreat.
Oh, off-site retreat to promote collaboration?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this is the George Knight, the name of the fund that you're requesting funds from is the George Knight Fund. The amount of the request is $3,000, and the purpose of the request is for an off-site retreat to promote collaboration. Ms. Wright, welcome to the table, and if you could just give us a summary of the request.
Okay. So the mission of the Division of Public Health is to equitably improve the health outcomes and quality of life for all residents by providing high quality, data-driven public health leadership. So the WDPH, which is, I just said, is committed to aligning its goals and priority to those of the city. So as part of this commitment, one of the objectives of the promote staff wellness, both on an ongoing basis and in response to the lasting impacts of the pandemic. So this aligns with the city's strategic goals and priorities, specifically Objective 7, that states it is to enhance the employee experience through a culture of employee engagement, wellness, diversity, and inclusion that leads to overall employee well-being, productivity, and retention. So WDPH goals, as I just gave an overview, we promote staff wellness on an ongoing basis, specifically following the pandemic. So I'm going to outline some of the initiatives that we have as a wellness committee. And one is to have 2 semi-annual staff retreats off-site for our staff. We also have workshops that we do. We have conducted annual staff wellness satisfaction surveys, right? And we integrate these findings of equitable audit into planning for staff wellness. Now, the request before the commission is for the next staff wellness retreat, which we will hold in the summer.
Okay.
Yes. All right. We have observed, and through staff feedback, that many employees continue to face challenges adjusting from the COVID pandemic and also from the political climate. So in response to that, we have planned the retreat. We have done 1 retreat already, which took place in September, and that was held at the Worcester Senior Center. All right. The facilitators were Dr. Castile, our outgoing commissioner, and our director, Tamara. So the retreat included all of the staff, the departments of the Health and Humanitarian Services Division. So it was not just for WDPH.
Do you know how many people that was?
We had about 45 persons in attendance
Oh,
at
great.
that retreat. So it was a really good experience for our first time. And we saw where persons really was so appreciative of the opportunity to let down their hair, to relax, you know, to just forget about work for that time period. And the response to that was very overwhelming, the feedback from that. So there was team building, we had breakout discussions, we had individual and departmental achievements that were highlighted, you know, and persons were just so appreciative of that. And then, so we have the second one to plan, which we will start planning in January for that. We have observed, especially at the WPH, that the need for this is really great, because we see staff getting ill, we see the burnout happening,
Yeah.
you know, and we are going to be collaborating again, the entire Health and Humanitarian Services Department in the second retreat. The cost of the first retreat, I must say, was borne by persons who contributed to
Oh,
this.
okay.
Yes. So that came out of pocket. The second time around, we don't want that. We don't want anybody assuming financial burdens for a retreat. That they should be relaxing, you know. So hence the proposal that we have submitted to you. And the costs that you have there are just estimates of the last retreat that we have.
Sure.
So we thank you for considering our proposal and our request. And yes.
Terrific. I have no questions.
No questions here.
I have no questions.
I'm gonna, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate the initiative. I think it's clearly due. I appreciate you putting the time in to come to us and ask for this, and I appreciate you putting the time in to put these retreats together for people who really deserve it. So I'm gonna move to approve the fund as requested. I'm looking for a second.
A second.
And all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
So approved.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Ms.
the
Wright.
opportunity.
Are you sticking around for another
Yes,
request?
I
You
will.
are.
We all drove in the same car, but we will.
We appreciate that frugality.
I'm always mindful of that. But Brenda, that will be the only presentation that Brenda will present. We'll have our next team member,
Terrific.
Devon, come up.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And this will be for the sensors, looking at air pollution throughout the city of Worcester.
Okay.
Oh, okay, 25,000, okay.
You're welcome.
Can you identify yourself?
Yes, my name is Devon Thornton. I'm the Environmental Health Coordinator for Division of Public Health.
Okay, spell your last name for me?
Thornton.
And the first name's Devon?
Devon, yes.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So we're considering now a request for funding from the George Knight Fund. The amount of the request is for $25,000. The purpose of the request, can you just briefly summarize the purpose of the request?
Okay. So the Built Environment team, in collaboration with the Environmental Health team within the division, is launching a proactive air pollution monitoring initiative, and it's aimed at improving public health outcomes, particularly in communities most vulnerable to poor air quality. Supported by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, the initiative will deploy purple air sensors to monitor fine particulate matter, a pollutant linked to asthma and other cardiopulmonary illnesses. This program aligns with the city's Clean City Initiative strategic plan, emphasizing environmental sustainability, public health, and community engagement. By providing real-time localized air quality data, the initiative empowers residents to make informed decisions for healthier living. Sensors will be strategically placed in high-risk neighborhoods with data integrated into educational and research efforts through partnerships with Worcester local colleges, universities, and public schools. This strengthens the Academic Health Collaborative and supports long-term community outreach. So to expand the program's reach, the division is requesting $25,000 in funding, and $15,000 is for 40 additional sensors, and $10,000 is for community engagement and intervention efforts. Sustainability is ensured through academic partnerships and ongoing community involvement. Once initial funding is utilized, the program will continue through existing infrastructure and volunteer support.
I gotta say, these are some great requests. Kudos to you.
And I'll
your
just say
staff.
your support is essential to the success of this initiative and to achieving a healthier and more informed Worcester.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
You mentioned that this is done in collaboration with, I think you mentioned some higher education entities?
Yes, right now we have WPI who is
Okay.
on board to work with us. We also have Clark, and we're in talks with Assumption College.
The data that's gathered from these sensors, is it the higher education entities that will ultimately assess the data that's collected and then make recommendations as to what that data reports, or?
Actually, it'll be a collaboration because we're hoping that grad students, actually with WPI, grad students will be involved.
Okay,
So we're hoping that this initiative will continually involve the grad students at the schools
great.
as well.
Okay,
But the built environment team, along with environmental health, will also be tracking the data as well.
you mentioned that the areas that you're trying to target are higher risk areas. In terms of identifying those higher risk areas, can you just talk about, if you know, how those areas were identified? Is it because of cardiopulmonary issues in those areas, or if you know?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. We're doing some mapping in those areas,
Oh,
and
great.
in certain areas that we're finding out about. So we're still kind of localizing the areas to be more exact
okay.
with that.
Go ahead.
To the chair, I was just going to chime in. We do have some preliminary data that is helping us to map out, as Devon mentioned, where those areas are. And we are looking at conditions such as asthma, COPD. We're looking also at cancers that are exacerbated by certain air toxins. And we have been able to create mapping that shows those high-risk zones. So individuals who are more prone or are more susceptible to air pollution, and then also there potentially being a cause and effect relationship there. So those are the areas that we'll be focusing on. And we do have data, some of the preliminary data, but this will help us to collect more of that data more real time, since publicly available data is typically there's a lag time of that data.
There are some of these sensors in the community right now. Is that fair?
Yes, but they're more being privately utilized.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So the Department of Public Health doesn't actually have any of these sensors working in the community presently?
No.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to make a few comments, and then I'm going to turn over the questions to my fellow commissioners. The comments that you're going to hear are the same comments that have already been presented to your fellow employees. We've got to think about sustainability of the program. Do you have a sense as to the lifespan of any particular sensor? With an eye toward, okay, you might be back in front of us in a year or 2 years. Do you have any sense of that?
I do not.
Okay.
The sensors, the only things we need for the sensors are Wi-Fi and electricity.
Yep.
Other than maintenance, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't tell you that.
Yep.
But I do think that with the amount of sensors we're asking for, I think this is more long-term. So I don't think we'll be back asking for more funding. I
Yep.
think we'll just be completely focused on the data and the engagement with the community.
Okay, and I'm just thinking out loud. If I funded you at a lesser amount, you've requested $25,000, and we as commissioners have to think about the sustainability of this fund. $25,000 a year is not a sustainable request. This is a pilot program, as far as I can tell, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if I funded you at a lesser amount and gave you the opportunity to see how this goes, it being a pilot program, and then report back to us in a certain amount of time, whether that be 6 months or a year, I'm not asking you to put a dollar amount on that, but would that be something that you could work with, or do you feel like $25,000 is the very minimum to get this off the ground?
No, that would be definitely something we can work with.
Okay.
We'd be grateful.
All right. Those are my questions. I don't know if my fellow commissioners have any questions.
Would lowering the amount from 25 to whatever threshold that we make it, will that limit the amount of sensors that you're able to purchase? Or, because I see that the 10,000 is for other intervention and community engagement. How much is actually needed for the 40 sensors?
For the 40 sensors, it would be about
That's the 15.
15,000, but we could just readjust.
Do you need 40 in order to get the data that you're looking for?
No.
Okay. Those are my only questions.
Those are mine as well. Sort of.
Is there a particular time of year in which measuring this data is more beneficial than others? Like, is summertime like a better time to be measuring air quality, or does it matter? Do you know?
Summertime would be a good time for measuring VOCs. During the winter time, I guess it would vary, but I think the summertime,
Okay.
the warmer climates would definitely.
So if we funded a request today, how long would it take, do you think, to get the sensors in hand and then deployed into the community?
I guess it would depend.
Yeah. Because what I'm thinking, I'm just trying to figure out when you could come back and report to us about how did this go. Here's what we think would be the program on a go-forward basis. So if I said to you to come back in September, tell us how this all went, I'm assuming that would be a sufficient amount of time.
Oh, it'd be wonderful.
Not only to deploy the sensors, but then also to tell us what kind of data you were able to gather and whether or not you think that the data was helpful, I guess.
Yes.
That would be a sufficient amount of time?
Yes.
Okay. I'm talking to my fellow commissioners here. My inclination is to fund the request for the purchase of the sensors, but not to fund the request for the community outreach, and to fund the sensors. It's a pilot program, so I wanted to fund the sensors at maybe $7,500, but I'm open to suggestions about that.
Would we be open to allowing the purchase of additional sensors after the progress meeting?
Yeah, and then also to look at community outreach at that point.
You agree to that?
Yeah, I think that's good. I guess a question would be, what's the amount of coverage that you get with 40 sensors versus 20 sensors?
Well, one sensor alone covers maybe I think the sensors are like a 2 by 2 inch size. So the sensors only read the area in which they're in.
Okay.
So we only thought of more sensors, so it'd give us an opportunity to create a localized area to get readings within a localized area to get better data. But if we had less sensors, then we could readjust and refocus.
The sensors like portable, can you use them in one area, bring them down, get data in another area? Like, can you target different localized spaces?
It kind of would make sense to keep the sensor in the place
In
that it's
one
in,
place.
but
Okay.
it could be.
Okay. But yeah, I guess back to kind of the conversation there, I think 20 sensors at 7,500 makes sense.
If we didn't fund the community outreach component of this, does that hamstring you in any way? I'm just thinking, like, in my mind, when I think about it, I'm like, let's get the data first, then do the community outreach. but I may be thinking about it all kind of backwards. So don't take my word for it, obviously.
To the chair, I wanted to just highlight the fact that the sensors provide real-time data. So as the information is coming in, we'll be able to, along with the grad students and our data epidemiology research team, be able to look at that data on an ongoing basis. So there is sort of a quick turnaround to be able to start sort of acting on that data, if you will. So one of the examples, one of the sort of pilot projects that they've seen in other locations, they were able to identify, for example, sensors that were set near schools, that there were higher air pollution. It was a higher level of air pollution in areas where cars were idling. So then in the outreach and the engagement with the community, the target was the students and the parents who were leaving the cars idle outside of the school.
Right.
So there, it's education, promotion of, a different, sort of behavior, if you will, with parents tearing the cars off while you're outside of the school. Something very simple, but the communication, promoting that education, that's where those funds come in support as we're getting that data real time.
That makes sense.
I think with that information being added, I think it might be of some importance to maybe include some of the 10K, maybe at a lesser rate, because I do kind of find that does meet the need for what we have the census for, to have that portion as well, even if at a reduced amount. Maybe half or 2.5K, depending.
If we were to fund at $2,500 for the community outreach, is that impactful, or is that not impactful?
I think it would be.
You're the expert.
I think it would be impactful.
Okay.
It would.
All right. Okay. It's going to sound like a broken record. Obviously, I would think none of these sensors are going to be deployed outside of the city of Worcester. That the intention here is to obviously stay within the bounds of the city of Worcester. I would want to have a report back from you in person, so you can take questions from us in September of 2026. I think that obviously we want to know what sort of data you were able to compile and whether or not that was helpful. We'd want to know the durability of these sensors and then our job as commissioners is to create sustainable programs. It's great to fund one-time programs too if that fits the bill. This sounds like, because it's perishable equipment, you're going to need to replace it over time. So there may be an ongoing request. So we'd want to know, how durable the sensors were, and what you think the program might look like into the future, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Those are my only two conditions. I don't know if you all have anything else.
I don't have any.
All right, great. So I'm going to move to fund this request at the amount of $10,000. The $10,000 is to be allocated $7,500 toward the purchase of sensors as requested, $2,500 to be allocated to the community outreach programs on the two conditions that I just set forth.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Thornton, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Last but not least, we have our Chief of Community Health, Jennifer, who will be presenting on our maternal child health plan. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you identify yourself again?
I'm Jennifer Nachijova.
How do you spell your last name?
Nakijob, B for boy, then A.
Okay. All right, Ms. Nakajoba, you are here. We're getting a request from the George Knight Fund. The amount of the request is $78,000. The purpose of the request is maternal and child health initiative. With that being said, welcome to the table, and tell us what the request is for.
Thank you. So I oversee the community health office within Worcester DPH, and part of that office, we have a unit, maternal and child health unit. In response to community needs, 3 years ago, the city chose to fund a full-time position, maternal and child health coordinator position, to really look at birthing people and mothers in Worcester and children, really focusing on enhancing services that we offer to our youngest citizens, our children. And as part of the city's 5-year plan, one of the goals is for us to invest in our children and also invest in our future as well. So for the last year, we've worked with over 50 organizations to put in place a maternal and child health improvement plan. And so in this case, we're in the process, we already done the work in the last few months to implement this plan. We cannot do that without resources, so hence why we are here, to request for funding to implement that plan. For the funding that we are requesting, this is really designed to strengthen coordination and be able to increase equity and improve maternal and child health outcomes across Worcester. I've had the questions asked earlier, so this for this plan is specific to just Worcester, not any other communities going forward. Coalition development, because we cannot do this work in isolation. We do depend a lot on other organizations that already are doing the work, but we found that we need and bringing different organizations to the table and those most impacted and being able to say what are the needs of our kids and mothers and birthing people in Worcester. Hence the plan that we submitted, really focusing on one of the simple things, education in the communities, right? Me needing to be able to know how do I advocate myself prior to even deciding to have a child, through pregnancy and after pregnancy. What does that look like for me in Worcester, and where do I go for resources, right? And we're finding that our mothers or birthing people don't always know where to go for resources and education and being able to advocate for yourself. We are seeing that folks that are most impacted in Worcester are folks in low-income communities. So those are the Black and brown birthing people, right? They seem to have they're most impacted and have most of the negative or worse maternal health outcomes, right? So our focus for this year is really being able to focus on low-income communities, being able to partner with grassroots organizations that have been able to increase the usage of doulas. What is a doula? Where do I find a doula? How can the doula support me through my birthing journey, right? So simple things like that can really change my health outcome as a birthing people. So also as well as breastfeeding rates, for example, right? We are seeing that parents are able to initiate breastfeeding, but there's no continuation after that, right? So as a city, what can we do about that, right? A simple thing as simple as a city being able to provide breastfeeding spaces for birthing people, right? That can make or break as a parent how long I breastfeed my child, right? So those are things that other cities are doing. We've been able to do some research to see best practices that have worked in other cities to improve the health outcomes for birthing people, and we want to be able to do the same in Worcester, right? Because we care about our babies, we care about those mothers, and being able to support them through that journey. So this is why we are here. Also being able to see that Massachusetts, our numbers are really high compared to other states, and Worcester, as well as Boston and Springfield, the three largest cities, being able to be leaders in this field, we feel like this is a step in the right direction. The city did find someone to do the work. Now we are here seeking resources to implement the plan that was put in place in collaboration, not just with just us, but with other organizations in Worcester that have been doing this work for so long. And through our data collection efforts, we're hearing feedback that as a city, there's a need to focus on early childhood and education. There's a need to focus on health outcomes for mothers, right? So we're asking for $75,000 to be able to move this work forward, and we cannot do it without funding.
If I could just add, as Jen has noted, we are focusing on really highlighting the disparities that exist in maternal child health data and experiences for moms and babies. So for the when looking at CDC data and looking at the state of Massachusetts, as we look at racial disparities and maternal mortality rate, as Jen noted, we have out of 100,000 births, 50.3 of the Black non-Hispanic moms experience mortality. Whereas when we look at when we look at Asian, non-Hispanic, 10.7, 12.4 for Hispanic, and then 14.5 for white non-Hispanic. So you can see there's a significant disparity that exists for Black as well as Hispanic brown moms who are giving birth in the same city with some of the same resources. And so things like the doula program, the Maternal Child Health Coalition that we have started, that has representatives from these communities is critically important as we think about what the resources are as they're going through that birthing process to help make sure that we're improving our outcomes on the back end. So for mortality as well as morbidity is what a lot of these initiatives are working to address. I think Jen was modest in the fact that we have a short period of time and we're already over time, but
okay.
the goal is to really address some of these startling statistics that exist right here in our own community.
And just to add to what the director just mentioned, we know the statistics. Every time we meet at different tables, we share the statistics, but now why? What are we doing about those statistics?
Yeah, the statistics that you shared, that's in the city?
Yes.
Okay. So, what's the Georgetown fund?
That's what the total would be if we were to fund all of them as
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were.
yeah. Which we
Which
yeah.
again,
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my questions are, first off, obviously, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for putting the effort in on this. I mean, I've been doing this job for 7 years. So, yeah, like, these are great initiatives. You've clearly put a ton of thought into this, and not only that, but this is clearly like, we're just getting the essence of a lot of work that's been done over a lot of years. So I really appreciate how much thoughtfulness has gone into this. We are, you've heard this already, so I'm a broken record, but I've got to think about sustainability of the fund. I've got to think about sustainability of your program, and I've got to think about, how this is clearly an ongoing initiative.
It is.
And so you can't be back in front of me a year from now asking for $78,000.
No, that's not possible. Maybe less.
So, is it fair to say that this is also a pilot program? Or is that not really fair?
It's not fair to say that.
Okay.
No.
So there's something like this currently going on that you've been able to assess the success of.
Reason being is that we have applied for grants in the past that we have received to get
Yep.
this work started. But as we know, grants come and go. So we've lost a few grants along the way.
Yep.
And I think the difference between our grant work and this is that this is a city-owned plan
Yep.
that the city is backing, and we can move to meet the needs of the city. Sometimes with grant funding, we're so limited in what we can and cannot do,
Yep.
and have to abide by those deliverables. We do currently have a grant that we've had for the last over 10 years
Yep.
that supports some of this work and has been supporting it, but it's not sustainable as
Sure.
well. Hence why we're here to enhance the already existing efforts that we have undertaken.
Right. And just to add to that, I will also say that part of our efforts in meeting our strategic priorities, we do have a finance committee that currently works and focuses on finding grants to support programs where we do not have funding currently.
Yep.
This particular office has actually, in partnership with another community organization, received one grant this year already. However, it's more so in partnership. You'll have to speak more to the details. There are other applications that have been submitted. We're waiting to see how those go.
Yeah.
But again, trying to sort of create some sort of restarting of energies around this work. I would also say that we are looking at billable opportunities as well, to look at supporting services like home visits for individuals who have just given birth, and looking at partnerships with the local hospitals around what that can look like, as well as with the state, where they have these programs existing and running. So we've met with the Boston Public Health Commission. We've met with the Public Health and Nursing Office in Chicopee, and I think they support 14 or 15 different communities that have robust maternal child health programs that are supporting their moms during this time.
Okay. The funding that we would be supplying, would it be an augmentation to what's currently being supplied, or are we keeping like the current level of service?
We will be keeping the current level of service as long as we have the grant funding from the state.
Yeah. I'm going to make a comment, and then I'm going to turn the microphone over to my other commissioners for their questions. we as a trust commission, we actually are the will of people who are long since deceased. Those people who died a long time ago created a pool of money that they wanted to have spent on exactly these kinds of initiatives. So I think it's a great honor to me to be able to utilize those funds in the present day in 2025 for initiatives that are really so on target. So I appreciate you coming in front of us today. My only comment is that I want us to be a sustaining partner. I don't want, you can't come back to us for $78,000 every year because we can't do it, but I do want to be this commission and this fund, because it's what it was set up for by this person a long time ago. I want it to be a sustaining partner for whatever it is that you're doing. Those are my only comments. I don't know if my fellow commissioners have, and we'll get into the actual request itself, but.
I think my only question / comment is more or less for us as a group, along the lines of there's already a lot of preliminary data that things like this have worked in the past. They are working. It's more of just a funding concern.
Yeah.
So I would trust that the funds obviously were used appropriately in the way that they needed to be as outlined. I guess my question is it a matter of the cost now as a one-time, where we could see how much we are receiving on the back end throughout the course of the year, where we can use those funds, on a continual basis? Or is that, I guess I don't know exactly where the 78 is allocated to. Maybe that might help a little
It's in
bit.
the packet we submitted, it's broken down per goal.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a breakout of the allocation.
Okay. Yeah, because I think because these things have already been done, I work in grant administration, because a lot of the goals, specific aims are things that you guys have already met with other projects during other reporting periods. I don't think that the need to ensure that the aims can be met is something that is of a true focus for us. Just making sure that the funds are spent appropriately within the restrictions of what they should be, and then what we can do going forward. I guess my other question would be, with the $78,000 being requested up front, I'm just curious if any of these goals and the funding that's needed for those goals could be anything that we wouldn't need in the future if they are truly just a one-time expense, or if future funding would just be less, I guess is my question.
Yeah.
It's just the part-time funding, 25,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do what you gotta do.
Do you have something, Mickey?
So, Nikki, do you mind coming up, because you're
Oh, yeah. It's an
We gotta
open
hear
meeting,
you.
so we gotta get everything on the record. Is that microphone on?
It's on, but it's, yep. Just wanted to highlight that if this might be a one-time ask for how much is it? $78,000, but what it will do is enhance, it will bolster the program to better position us to apply and be successful in other grant opportunities or grant proposals. So just wanted to highlight that fact.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is important because it would add to the robustness of the information that you're providing to the next sponsors when you're looking for that funding. Having more of that data would be extremely beneficial to the funding sources in the future if they were not going to be through the Trust Commission. So thank you for that.
Shepherd, any questions for you?
Not for the program. I mean, I think it's really well listed out and everything, and the breakdown is great. I think it's more wanting to make sure it's sustainable, right? If we do partner on this, I guess how much have we requested for in grants? If you're willing to share, maybe that, like what
This year.
Yeah, this year, and how much is. If there's an
An
idea of
estimate.
how much you've seen kind of come in previously, not that any history is any indication of the future, but just how, what role are we playing in the bigger picture, I guess, of everything?
One of the grants that we've been getting for over 10 years, as I mentioned, is $150,000. That is actually covering the full person's salary as well as programming. So it's impossible to have any money left over to actually do this work with authenticity at all. Most recently, we submitted a grant about 2 weeks ago for $250,000 as well. Again, using this work plan, so we're actively seeking funding. A month ago, we applied for a grant that was really small through Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we got that funding alongside another partner
Okay.
to try and move this forward. So as Tamara mentioned earlier, we're actively looking
Yeah.
for funding outside of this trust fund.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a constant,
Yeah.
constant fight. Has that level of funding dropped off in the past couple of years, or I see somebody shaking their head yes in the back there.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's amongst my commissioners, this is a big ask, $78,000. It's not a sustainable ask.
I think just from the work that I do in general with grant and grant administration, I personally don't have a problem with the full ask up front.
Yeah.
Because I do find that with the mention of the work that can be done with this funding would allow for them to get potentially substantial funding from other sources. They wouldn't have to come back necessarily
Yeah.
for anything even related to this initiative again. And I think with everything that was mentioned and the need for the city, that this could be a really big positive in several ways, not just for the citizens, but for the city of Worcester, for the trust funds, and what we're using the funds for. Because understanding research grants and how things and funding work like that, having that data up front shows credibility and allows, trust for future funding, and more people would be attuned to, provide additional funding going forward because of the robust information you potentially could provide with this added funding. So I don't actually have any qualms with the amount that it is. I'll leave that up for, I guess, the group questioning.
I guess if we did a lump sum, I just want to make sure that it's being implemented too, right? Obviously, you guys have been doing this for a while, but $78,000 with no kind of, I don't know the process of if it's not, lactation centers aren't created, and like some of the bigger ticket items, like, there's hiccups or all of a sudden we can't do it, so the money goes, like, how do we make sure it's going to where we want, it's kind of specified here. Would we be open to doing like a little bit now, seeing it implemented?
Milestone related?
Yeah, like almost kind of releasing as projects are prepared, or I don't know the process there. I guess asking the question to
The only problem with that is we only meet
The disbursement.
4 times a year, and sometimes those meetings themselves get interrupted. And I don't want to hold up, if they're relying on funding, I understand the milestones. The request is for a $78,000 one-time funding request. I mean, you'd essentially have to be amending the vote to, for example, break it up into quarters. Okay. And then they'd have to come back for another funding request at the next meeting, which I don't know that that's going to work. I guess the question might be to you. This isn't a pilot program is what I'm kind of struggling with. So this is something that that you need. You see the road ahead. You know that you can't come back to us on a funding request like this. So
I think something, how about like a project over the course of 2 years and have a couple reporting periods?
What would a report look like? I mean, do you already do this kind of a thing? Would we be getting like a 20-page summary with like hard facts and data, or like how do you see a report looking to us?
Sure. So currently we do have a public-facing data dashboard for maternal child health, where these key KPIs or key performance indicators that we're tracking are publicly available. We also have a performance management dashboard that we're creating for the programmatic work plans. So we're looking at both of those sort of, hand in hand as we implement, and then we sort of see what impact is occurring. Additionally, we are partnering together with UMass Chan on what's called the Worcester Integrated Health Data Exchange wide for short,
Okay.
where we're looking at real-time data from the various hospitals. So UMass Memorial, Family Health Center, St. Vincent's has recently signed on, but our maternal child health team and our data team is partnering with the clinical institutions within the community to look at these specific health outcomes for our moms and our babies.
Yeah.
So we're putting a lot of effort into measuring outcomes as well as looking at our programmatic indicators to see where we are from a sort of performance perspective. So it could look different ways depending on how you want to sort of see it, but there is a robust effort behind all of this, and it's pretty transparent, if you will, with the current dashboard that we have, and we can make the others available.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just because I understand your concern related to the George Knight Fund, I'm just looking at Group 2, Health and Code, which is all of the trusts that have this same purpose, the same definition. Outside of the George Knight Fund, so not including the George Knight Fund, there's an additional $876,000 that's available for distribution.
Yeah.
So I think, well, I agree, the requests in front of us are all utilizing the George Knight Fund as their funding source.
Yeah.
There will still remain, even with this fund, a significant amount of money that would be available for these purposes going forward.
Yeah.
Admittedly, some of them are, $392 here, $462 there. So in future rounds, it may be that assuming a wonderful scenario where all the money is going out the door, in future rounds that there may be multiple funding sources for an individual request, but there is significant sums within this group to do this type of work.
If we, just picking up on Shepherd's point, so if we funded half of this now and then made a commitment to fund the other half in 2026 on the condition that we got a report back, how would we do that? Would we now set aside the other? I don't know that I would leave it invested, right? I mean, I guess I've never done that before.
So through the chair, what we do when the commission votes is we draw down those funds and we would put them into essentially a donation account or a grant account.
Great.
So if you vote for half, we would only draw down the half, and the remaining would stay at Bartholomew for investment purposes.
I would vote for the full amount, but I would want half of it to be retained, and if that's possible, you can't do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
That would put the judgment on the staff to just kind of create the arbitrary line of when is enough.
Yeah. What were you thinking, Shepard?
I'm just looking at the allocation here. With the size of the portfolio. How much are we carrying in cash equivalents? So they're looking at there's 132,000 in cash equivalents right now.
But that's not allocated to a particular fund, so that I don't think we could draw down on.
Yeah, through the chair, when we draw the funds, Bartholomew closes it out of each individual trust.
Yeah.
Transfers it over to us.
Yeah. So the cash on
And then we
hand
put
is.
it-
So this is just okay.
To my fellow commissioners, I mean, my inclination is to fund the request as asked for. On the same conditions that the initiative obviously be servicing residents of the city of Worcester, number one, and number two, that we get a report on the initiative and the implementation of these funds in September of 2026. And I wouldn't condition this as part of the vote, but just everybody around this table understands that this is not a sustainable request. That's not a knock by any stretch, but that I think this trust commission and this George Knight would very much like you to be back in front of us on an ongoing basis.
Yes.
But for less than $78,000. Unless, of course, the stock market goes crazy.
Right.
I think we already hit crazy territory a long time ago. So anyway, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And that's the vote I'm going to propose unless I'm talked out of it.
I have nothing to talk you out of it. I agree with funding the full amount. I think it's a great initiative. I think it will lead you guys to more resources in the future. And I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what this is for. So, okay. So, with those conditions in place, and is it fair to ask that you report back to us in September of 2026? Okay. And, you know, we're not in the business of holding you accountable to any particular metric because we're not qualified to do that. We just want to be sure that our funds were used for the purposes for which they were distributed and that the good work that you've been doing continues to be done. So I'm not going to ask that mortality rates have come down or anything like that. So, but that would be great. That would be great. Don't get me wrong. Okay, so I am going to move to fund the request as asked for on those two conditions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate everything that went into this.
Yes, thank you.
Are we at
Thank you.
at an end in terms of funding requests? Okay. All right. You guys have to stick around because we got to sign all these things. Let's see. Oh, where's my agenda? Okay. Scheduling.
Where's my?
Through the chair.
Yeah.
We were
trusty
looking
device.
to schedule either February or March meeting.
Yeah.
At which point the plan would be to have Bartholomew back and just talk about year-end 2025.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Results.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't crash that car. There's way too much value in that car. All right. So it's December, February. I think February makes sense, with the exception of February vacation. School vacation is the 16th to the 20th. If we met on a Thursday, I have pretty good availability in February. I can suggest February 12th.
Yeah.
I will. I am booked the
Feb-
12th,
The 12th?
Yeah.
Okay.
but the 5th and the 26th both work.
I think,
I'm good on either of those. I'm good for Thursday on the entire month of February.
okay, so if we tried to get together on the 26th of February at noon, is that okay?
Yep.
All right. The agenda items I'd like to have for that would be, number one, a year-end report from Bartholomew and Associates. I'd like to get some I want to have another discussion about the management of particular trust funds. Here for some of those discussions. Shepard, you were not here for any of them, so it might be a good opportunity to kind of introduce the topic, maybe not come to a conclusion on it, but at least start that process. So those would be my only two agenda items for that meeting. I'll put it to my commissioners whether or not you have another agenda item or anything?
I don't believe so, no.
All right.
No.
Okay. All right.
26th.
The 26th
12.
at noon.
Okay.
Great.
I think I might have mistakenly sent you an email with that on there.
Okay, that's fine. I get it. All right, that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, yeah. I will move to adjourn. I need a second.
I'll
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.